Good morning and welcome to Fire in the Belly. Today we have myself, Mighty Pete, and we're joined by Heather Lundy. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning, Pete.
Thank you very much for coming on. Thank you for coming on the show. It's you're not you're familiar to the show, so it's great to have you on in the passenger seat as such. And
I know it's my turn for a grilling.
oh, it's all going to be great. So tell everyone who you are, what do you do, and where do you come from?
I'm Heather Lundy. I'm a ghostwriter and editor. So I suppose people will be wondering, well, what's that? What's a ghostwriter? So I listen to people's stories, and I help them get those ready into book form, ready for publishing. I love listening to people's stories. I love helping them get their message out, getting their voice across, and so that's what I do. And I'm also a coach with Karen Newton International, desktop publishing coach. So I coach people who want to write their own book, and again, through the writing process and through self-publishing and marketing their own book. And I'm from Northern Ireland, just down the road from yourself. I live in a little town called Dromore.
Perfect. And just to put it out there as well, so we are working on a number of projects at the moment, so there's lots going on. So we do get to spend a lot of time together, which is fantastic, but more importantly here, we want to get your story across. So
I love listening to other people. So this is a real turning of the tables. I mean, I've loved being on and getting the opportunity to interview and, well, chat. Really, it's been a chat, hasn't it, Pete?
Absolutely.
So yeah, tables turned. Let's see, talk about me.
Let's go start straight in the deep end then. So what does Fire in the Belly mean to you?
Fire in the Belly, it means so many things. I just think it's such a great turn of phrase, and a great concept. For me, my fire in the belly is really at this stage in my life about legacy, if I'm honest. You know, I've two adult children now. My younger son is 11. And I've spent a long time as a mother, but increasingly now coming to the point in my life where you're thinking grandkids could be, 5 to 10, hopefully 10 years down the line. What's the legacy going to be? And my fire is really about guiding them, being an inspiration to them, I hope, showing them the way, and creating the best life I can for us. Big focus for us, I suppose, the big fire at the minute, or the big conversations are really about traveling, wanting to do a lot more traveling, see a lot more of the world together.
It's always good there, I mean, it's great that, you have that exposure, and as you say, you've almost another life sort of starting off as well. You've so much coming up ahead and so many plans and desires, and, do you actually plan it out, or do you just, what way do you see the future for yourself?
Well, I feel like life's just really opening up again in a whole new way. I'm working on so many interesting projects, and I remember writing about, must have been about a year ago, that I really wanted to find a small group of people that I really, I would have used the word resonated with them, and by that I mean people who thought along the same lines, who wanted to do creative projects around books, films, really getting messages out and messages that would inspire people, really focusing on what have we learned, what are we here to say, and what do we want to share. And I think it's that point where you actually start to meet those people and they start to come through, and it's very free and it's very exciting. So for me, it's a massive life change at the moment, and since lockdown, I would say. So I have worked for Alzheimer's Society for 10 years. I'm now leaving the Alzheimer's Society in November coming up, later on in 2020. And the time that I spent there, I loved. I joined Alzheimer's Society after my granny was diagnosed with dementia. And that was back in October 2010. And looking back now, after all I've learned and the people that I've had the privilege of working with over those 10 years, when I look back, I didn't really know what dementia was. Her sister had died just a few weeks previously with dementia. And we, as a family, were kind of thinking, oh, who will she come to live with, And she was always a very independent woman, a very articulate woman. And she was able to say, her and my granddad were able to say this at the Christmas, we're going to stay at home. If the time comes, we'll look at a nursing home. And we all started to really find out more. And I got in touch with Alzheimer's Society. And that started really a 10-year journey where I've worked across all sections of the organisation and loved it. But I think over the last couple of years, with a number of changes, it was really, I was coming to the end of it. You know, I really wanted some fresh challenges. I'd worked with so many people with dementia and saw such a change in terms of them getting their messages out, talking to people, inspiring change, working to get policy changed. But increasingly, I had come to the point where I wanted to be focusing more on my own projects. I had, I'd helped fundraise a lot of money for the organisation. I'd helped achieve a lot of things with all the great people that I was working with. But increasingly, I want to focus on myself, my own family, and think about what legacy am I going to leave.
Because I know choice is a big thing for you, and deciding, what you want to do. So give us an idea there of what choice means to you.
Well, for me, everything's choice. And I don't mean that to sound glib. I think over the past few years in particular, there has been a great freedom in understanding that I have choice over everything. I've choice over how I react to things. I've choice over the direction I choose to take. I've choice over my aims, my goals. I've choice over the people I work with. So for me, choice is really freedom and responsibility. You know, the fact that you have choice over every step that you take. There's so much freedom in that, but there is responsibility. And I've chosen to really focus on doing what I want to do, and that's brought me right almost full circle. So I started off loving English, writing a lot. I trained as a journalist. I was a cub reporter in the local papers, and I worked with a number of papers. I've always written short stories. I've always written within my job as well, but really came back to writing. And over the last few years, I've been writing a lot. I wrote a couple of books. I'm working on a book at the moment. I'm working on a couple of books at the moment that I'm very excited about. I've one coming out over the next few months. And that's what I enjoy. And that's the choice I'm making, to do what I want to do, to work with people I want to work with on projects that I feel excited and inspired by.
Why write?
I just think people's stories are so important. I love reading. I read, Pete, as you know, I read a book a week. I love reading. It's not always a different book. Sometimes it's the same book, and I do come back to books, but I read a huge amount and always have. And I love hearing people's stories and the messages that they have. I love finding out what they've done, how they've done it, how they spend their day. Fascinating. You know, we all have 24 hours, but we all use it so differently. We have such different outcomes. So yeah, I love reading. I love knowing people's stories, but I find great strength and power in actually writing it. You know, because you can then choose the message, you can choose how you frame it, you can choose what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. And I think in writing, I find it, like if I'm doing anything, even this, you know, I'm always sitting with a pen and paper. I'm always writing down notes. I'm you know, as people are talking, I'm thinking, and I'm thinking of it in sentences. So for me, it feels a very natural thing.
It's always interesting there because your language changes there between visual and kinesthetic, as in, how you feel and what you see and what you do. And it's interesting how those two have come in for you. And also there's a slight displacement there. You talk about, how others can feel and all the rest, whereas do you bring that in yourself? Do you visualize out of interest?
I do, yeah. And I suppose I would see things very much in pictures, or like a movie reel. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So, for example, one of the books that I'm working on at the moment with someone, and she has a fantastic story, and she has a lot of writings that will go into the book, but I'm working on the chapters, and the writings will be interspersed. But as she's talking, I would very much see it as a movie. I see her at that point in time. That's how I would visualize it. And then it would sort of unveil itself.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Does it?
It's
I
an
don't think I've
interesting.
ever thought that that's how I do it, but that's what happens.
Mm, mm. Very interesting. Again, you've got to see it, and you see it in your mind, and you see it and that side. So coming across very visual. Do you ever listen, or as in for listening to a book, or is it always reading?
No, I do. I listen a lot. Well, I've been listening to your podcast since it started. As you know, I love listening to podcasts. I love listening. I do listen to audiobooks. Um, I love sitting with a book, yes, but I find it very relaxing to listen to an audiobook. And but I do love podcasts. I love listening to real people. Yeah, I'm interested in people's stories, what they say, how they say it, why they say it, how they reflect on it, how they've changed. Um, and I love hearing their own voice. Like on a podcast, you're hearing that person's own voice. I love that because you get a different sense of them. Yeah. So I
What's your
listen to a lot of stuff, as you know. I'm
hmm,
always listening and I'm trying to learn and enjoy that.
what's your superpower?
Um, my superpower, all I can say is the power pose. My superpower would be very uncomfortable. The idea of a superpower. My superpower, I think, would be probably my kindness and openness to people. I'm genuinely interested in most people I meet. Um, and I would say I'm a fairly kind person, and I'm certainly a fairly open person. I've maybe learned to temper that over the years. I think I used to be an awful lot more open than maybe I choose to be now. Um, but I do aim to be open. I try not to put a filter on myself too much, but I'm a lot more aware as I've got older about the impact of something you share, how that might impact someone else depending on where they are. So I think, that maybe is more about the choice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's always, as you say, that sharing. It's that side.
Is that a
Inter-
superpower? Kindness and openness? Would we call that a superpower? I want to say flying or.
but you can, yeah, yeah, generally something that you have, unless you've sort of you can't actually fly, which I'm not saying you can't, but yeah, sort of take off. It's like, well, yeah, we're all capable of flying for 2 seconds, but yeah. No, but I mean, I'm just curious. I think, yeah, kindness and openness is great because it comes up in different attributes. So listening is openness and kindness, and in a different form as such, but it's all one and the same. Interestingly, just before you said that, there was a hesitation there, and almost,
Yeah.
you talked about a. Well, I don't know. Can you explain the hesitation maybe?
Well, around whenever you're asked what's your superpower, and I suppose that looking at yourself or blowing your own trumpet, that very Northern Irish thing of, sure, who am I? That kind of, would that be fair to say? Is that the part you meant where I was kind of
Yeah,
asked what's your
yeah.
superpower? Yeah, I suppose it's that. It's also maybe that thing that you don't maybe, like, I have American friends, and it's so funny, to listen because they're just so different. I remember whenever my family and I, with the children, we went to this like art workshop in the Guggenheim one time. We were in America, in New York, and we were all sitting making these little things. All the adults, all the kids were making these little models, and like the American kids were all talking about my geometric, like there were circles and squares. They were all talking about my geometric shapes and all these amazing things. And you were literally going, oh my God, what are they doing? They were really able to talk about how wonderful they are and how much they've done and how brilliant they are. And you're talking about like 7 to 11-year-olds. We were sitting with our kids and we were all like, do you hear them, So I suppose it's just that, yeah, being able to talk about your good attributes and being able to say, this is something I do well.
Oh, that's super. Oh, that's amazing. Take us right back then to Junior and Mini Heather. What were we looking at?
Oh, what are we looking at? I was born in Dromore, part of a very large extended family. And growing up, I suppose I was a child of the 80s, so both parents were working, very different times, school, I was always surrounded by my cousins and, you know, neighbours. Lived on a street. I'm actually back in one of my childhood homes I'm living in currently. It was where I spent a significant part of my childhood, and it would have been the childhood home that I certainly loved living in the best. We would have moved quite a bit. And then I went to the local primary school, and then on to Banbridge Academy. And what would I say about, I was one of those kids who was kind of generally good at most subjects, but I certainly loved English and maths. They were my firm favourites. And I had a wonderful English teacher for A level. I had her actually right through GCSE and A level, and we had probably a bit of a love-hate relationship at times. She really pushed me. And you know, she would have been quite clear. She would have expected a lot and held me to it. And I'm so grateful to her, because actually that challenge led me on to really excel at English and do really well in my A levels. And then I went on to Queen's. I spent most of my teenage years. I also worked as a groom for a local family who were extremely good to me and who I grew really very close to. So I got to spend a lot of time traveling up and down the country to show jumping shows. I got to spend all my time with the horses, and that's really what I loved. You know, that's how I spent my teenage years. And we had great times, great fun, and as I say, they were so good to me. You know, still just very special people that I'd be close to. So from there, I went on to Queen's, on to uni, and then. Oh, Pete, I don't know if anyone else has this experience, but I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I had been accepted to do maths and psychology, and then I did really well at English, and I thought, oh, I don't want to give up English. So I phoned Queen's and they let me change to English and psychology. And then I decided, looking back, I wasn't ready. I really needed a year out. So I decided to change then to management. I wanted to do business. So I did that. I changed to management. I had to take a year out. I did a management degree, which was hugely interesting, to be honest. I know that might sound controversial. People are like, but it actually was really interesting. We did marketing, we did international business, we did business law, employment law, people in organizations, leadership. It was really interesting, and I did enjoy it. But I didn't really want to go into that, so then I changed again and did journalism and became a journalist.
That's pretty impressive now. So we've gone through 4 title changes. I'm going to call you out now, because it's like, so we started over maths and psychology, changed to English and psychology.
They kept letting me do it. They kept letting me change. They were so good to me. They were just like, get on with it. Yeah. Oh, seriously.
Was this all in the first year or through the period?
This was literally, I had been accepted. I loved maths, and we went to the same school, Pete, so you'll remember. Do you remember Mr. Scott?
I do. He was my form teacher.
Was he he was my maths teacher, and we had so much fun in our maths classes. We really did. And I did maths A level and stuff, and I always loved maths. And we know we talked about this before, and I actually have a book I must take a photo and send you. But there's a great beauty in maths, and I always really enjoyed it. And that's what I wanted to do, maths and psychology. And then during my A-level years with Mrs. Cartmill, I really grew to absolutely love English. So by the time I was conflicted, and then I really did very well in my English A-level, and it was like, oh, don't give it up. Everyone's like, oh, don't give up English. So yeah, I just phoned the guy at Queen's, like whatever they're called, the head of English, and explained to him, and he's like, no problem, come over to us, and accepted me. So I literally got my A-levels, spent a week going, oh, what am I doing? Spoke to the head of maths, who was lovely, and he was like, listen, this is a hard choice. They were so nice, honestly, Pete. And then I panicked for a week, spoke to my maths teacher, spoke to my English teacher, spoke to all the people in the uni, and then English and psychology both said, we'll welcome you, whatever. So they let me change. And then I did that until, I think it was in November. And I don't know about you. I don't think I was really ready. I wasn't quite ready to move out of home. I was maybe finding it tougher than I wanted to say in terms of living away from home. The work was fine. I was doing really well. I was sitting on a really high average in my English, and it was interesting. And I probably could have said, I just need a year out, but I didn't. I made it, no, I want to change degree. I don't regret it because I did enjoy my degree and I got a lot out of it, which has stood me in good stead. But yeah, and then they let me change to that, and yeah, that's it.
Why journalism?
Again, just love listening to people's stories, love getting messages across. And journalism, I suppose, for me at that time was it was the only really form of writing that I knew. I didn't know anybody who wrote books or poetry or, that to me was writing. It was journalism. And I thought I wanted to go into like features journalism. I did everything. If I would have worked across like hard news, features. I got to do loads of reviews. Like I also had started my family when I was a student. So I had my twins in my final year, took another year off to have them. So like we were everywhere when I was a journalist. They got to go to everything because I was always reviewing it. So I got to review all the movies. I went to all the festivals, all the concerts. We went to Disneyland on ice every year, or everything. And it was really good. It was really good fun, mostly.
I love the common thread through all that was actually the psychology. Whilst the other part changed, the psychology, I suppose, and even the psychology in journalism, because you have to understand the thought process or the message that's trying to get across. Does that make sense?
Massive thing for me. I'm always trying, seeking understanding, I suppose.
Mm.
And I think when I was younger, I tried, like now I'd be relaxed about it, but that's because that comes with age and knowing people. But I think when I was younger, I would have tried to work people out. Why I tried to work people out, but I always found it really interesting, kind of how people did things and why they did things.
Did you work it out?
Never. But now I don't really try to. Well, that's not true. That's an absolute lie. I still maybe try to. I still try to. I've just realised, no, that's not true. But I still do. I love watching people. This sounds real. Like somebody said to me recently, "Oh, you were stalking." I don't mean in a stalky way, but I genuinely love watching people and how they interact. And I suppose there is that part of me that is maybe trying to work things out all the time. But I love at the minute, because with the people I'm working with, or if you're working with somebody on a book or a project, you're trying to it's almost in the conversations and the interactions you help each other understand. Does that make sense? And I love that moment when you get clarity. You're listening to somebody, or somebody challenges you on something, or there's something you know it's not right, but you don't know why, and you can't get, and then you have that moment of clarity where it's clear, and you feel free, and things move ahead, and you know what you're saying. There's confidence that comes with it. And I love the fact that we can use that to more positively influence people and ourselves. Yeah.
Do you understand yourself?
Yeah.
Ooh,
I do.
Interesting energy.
I do, yeah. For good and bad. Yeah, I do. I very much do at this point in my life. Yeah.
Are you where you want to be, or are you where you should be?
I'm definitely where I should be. And I would say I'm maybe not where I want to be, but I'm definitely where I should be.
It's always interesting, because obviously, the journey you've been on and what you're doing, it's there. But Thomas, before we get into that, in terms of as a teenager, what did you want to do when you sort of grew up?
I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to write books. Yeah. That's what I wanted to do, always.
Where did that come from then, originally?
Well, I always read a lot.
What do you remember some of your early readings?
My goodness. I think probably whenever we really started picking books apart in secondary school, I loved that. You know, all the layers that went underneath whenever you really looked at something and read it and you deciphered it and you thought about it in context of the time and what it might have meant and how it could have meant that. And I remember, like, the first time I read Jane Eyre, it really annoyed me. Like, it became a book that I absolutely loved. But the first time I read it was with a teacher. Oh my goodness, it was Mrs. Cartmel again. I must have had her for forever, that poor woman. God love her. But, we read it and, I felt it was very stuffy and dated. And I was very, I suppose at that time, all about action. I was always busy and out and very physical. If I wasn't on the farm, I was out with the horses. I was always, and I felt it was very, dull. And then you started to, like, pick it apart in class and talk about it. And I was so wrong, and it was fascinating and so interesting. And all of the books that we kind of did from there, the poetry, the war poetry, Pride and Prejudice, we did a lot of those kind of Jane Austen, Charlotte Bronte, those kind of books. Yeah, fascinating.
What do you love to do?
In what way?
Take it whatever way you want.
What do I love to do? I love to chill. I love to just sit and be. I love to travel. I love to go new places. I love to eat out. I love to meditate. I love to be around my children. I just love whenever they're all here and they're kind of about. They're all at the stages now where it's very different, when they're small and they're sort of locked to your side and they love to be with you, whereas now it's like you just love them to be in the same house. And the things that they benefit most from is when you're just maybe there and those conversations will open up or something will happen. I love going hiking with them, love traveling with them. Yeah. And I love meeting people that I can have really brilliant conversations with. I just find that so, like, it seems to happen almost out of nowhere sometimes. You just meet someone and it's like, wow, look what you think.
Mm-hmm. Who do you tend to, because it's interesting that you're talking about the sort of journalism and a number of things, but what sort of characters do you tend to resonate with?
Characters? All varied, lots of really different people, very diverse people. If I think of my friendship group, my friends, like close friends, would range from maybe like 35 to 55. They're hugely varied, different backgrounds. Some are parents, some aren't. Some are business people, some are academics, some are, stay-at-home moms or dads. Everyone's hugely, hugely different. But the thing that I love about the people that I'm closest with is that they're very authentic. They're very real about how they're feeling, where they're at. They're comfortable in their own skin. You feel comfortable around them. Yeah, they're the people I would resonate most with. And people you can have a laugh with. Good old belly laugh,
It's always great.
Yeah.
In terms of from your journalism side, then, what stories did you love to write, or where was your special place?
My special place was reviewing concerts and going to. I remember taking friends to like review a movie, and we used to all go. Get then, so we used to have like press screenings, and I remember a friend coming with me. I can't remember what the film was, and everyone got up at the end and like clapped, and they were like, "What is this?" So I loved doing that. I loved. But it was, much of my work was like, the local papers. It was local stories. It was local news. It was community news, and hard, quite hard features, you know, maybe if somebody had an accident or there was difficult news, yeah. And I enjoyed all of it. I was fine doing it. I loved interviewing people. I've always been able to pick up the phone to someone and have a chat, or go out and meet them. But that was a big step. Like, I remember the first time I had to go out and interview somebody, and I was terrified. I was absolutely quaking in my boots, and I had my wee recording device, and off you went. And I had a brilliant editor. His name was David Fletcher, and he kind of took me on. He gave me the opportunity. I went in, had a meet with him, and he was like, "Right, come on, let's do this." And I remember the first piece he gave me, and it was a feature. And I remember sitting like in front of the computer for about 2 days, just like, you know, typing something and deleting. You know, it was so hard. Like, now you could just do it, but all of that learning anything.
What was the feature on?
I really can't remember. I wonder what it was on. I should remember because it was the first one, but I think I've blanked it out. I really don't know. I know that it was the guts of a page in the paper, and I remember I remember my first front cover. It was on a lovely local man. He was waiting for a transplant, and it was for transplant, so he wanted to raise awareness of that. And I went out and interviewed him, and interviewed another man, local man as well, who had had a transplant and the change that had made to his life. Yeah, so it's a real privilege to be able to kind of raise awareness of that and be saying to people, you know, are you on the organ donor list? Would you think about it? Here's people in need, and let them meet those people, you know, the reality of it, and to have someone who's waiting, who thankfully did get a transplant about, I think it was 18 months later, and has had a good life, you know. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, what's your core values?
Values: loyalty, respect, choice. Choice is a value for me. Being authentic and having integrity. Is that enough?
There's loads. It's 5.
That's enough for me then. Yeah, no.
What comes top of the tree there for you? What's your non-negotiable?
Integrity.
Can I ask why?
I think it's that thing of, in life, where I've maybe been the most challenged, is where I have had an agreement with somebody or an understanding with somebody, and it hasn't been upheld as I see it. So I think for me, the most challenging times have been where somebody hasn't done what they've said they're going to do, or they haven't let me know that they're not going to do what they've said. So I'm still thinking we're on an agreement. And this has been in a number of ways, in business and family and relationships. And I'm sure I've done it, you know, but I sort of hope not. But I've always strived to do what I've said I'm going to do, and I've strived to be honest as I can with people. But that for me is the most important thing. So even if they can't do it anymore, I want to be told, you know, I want somebody to come to me and say, hey, here's where I'm at. This is what's happening. And I hope I always endeavour to do that for other people.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So take us then. So through your journalism time, where did you get to with it?
Well, I worked in the local papers. I would have did some freelance for the kind of regional press, like the Belfast Telegraph, the newsletter, and the Irish News. I did a couple of bits for them. I had been asked then to try it for UTV, and I had 2 young kids, and I suppose I had always thought that's what I'd love to do, and I maybe could have made it work, but the reality was they were asking for 4 a.m. starts at that time. Lovely team of people now, but I had 2 young children, and it just didn't feel very feasible to me at that time. I was a single mom with 2 young kids, and I chose then to go into PR, which was better paid, let's be honest, and communications. It was better paid than journalism at the point I was at. And again, then things just sort of evolved. I went into PR and communications, then I went into business development and fundraising. Things just kind of evolved, I would say. You know, you were asking about a plan. I would say this is the first time in my life over the last year that I've had a plan. Whereas before that, I think things just kind of evolved, maybe. Like you did this project and it naturally led to that one, or you were working in this field and that kind of led to that. And yeah.
Do you know why?
Synchronicity, just life unfolding as it should.
But it's the fact that you've chosen to have a plan, whereas before, what's coming across anyways, before it was a forward tumble. It was happening. It was planned as it was being done type thing. Whereas now you're almost suggesting that it's pre-planned and it's evolving differently.
Yeah, very much so, because I suppose I was very much, that forward tumble is exactly it. And I wasn't maybe looking around me to think, I was on a path, like one thing led to another, and it did feel synchronistic, but I wasn't looking all around me at all the areas of my life and thinking, is this working? Is that working? Is this for the best? So career-wise, it felt very much, it just unfolded and very natural, and things progressed from one step to the next. But I suppose I've got a plan now, because I'm thinking about all the other areas of life, and what I want to be doing there and how I want to be doing it. And also that if I'm going to do the things I really want to do, it has to be by choice, because as things were unfolding, they were taking me maybe further away. Now, I don't feel they were, because I did a huge amount of research. I was writing reports. We were doing, there was a lot of writing in my job as well. And I learned a huge amount about people.
What's something you've enjoyed writing the most?
One of the things that I have found the most therapeutic, would we say therapeutic? I've done a huge amount of writing the last few years, and I've worked on a couple of books that I'm not quite ready yet. I've had really good people look at them, and I know that they're of a quality and a standard, but I'm not ready to let them to go, if I ever will be. But one of the things I've really enjoyed working on, I'm working on a book at the moment, as I was saying, with a lot of other brilliant people, that's coming out in a few weeks. And I'm really proud. I really enjoyed that process, because in it, I'm really talking about, I suppose, the changes that have happened within my family. Divorce, separation, things that a lot of people go through, unfortunately, but that is difficult, and where I suppose I had to make choices and learned a lot more about the benefit of choices, more positive choices. And that whole process was really good. Even thinking about what you wanted to say, having to have it so condensed down to like a little chapter, and getting your message really clear. I've really enjoyed writing that. I really enjoyed the people that I was working with, and being part of that whole dynamic and team, and being asked to contribute.
Because it's interesting. You've talked a lot about connection to others and how you sort of seek like-minded people. Is that something that's come through this time? Is that your sort of way forward, as you see it?
Yeah, I do. I feel like I've found the right people. Yeah, and I feel really happy and relieved about that. I feel like I've found a lot of it. Obviously, there'll be other people who will come, and have a long life ahead of me, touch wood. And I have great friends that have come along with me as well. One of the big things, I suppose, in that was that in the year after my marriage finally ended, I found it really hard to be around some people. That was a real revelation to me, and I found that I by choice wanted only to be around people, as I say, that felt like sunshine, people that I felt good around, people that I could have really easy conversations with, people that I felt it was easy to be with, whether we were speaking or silent or whatever. And I went on a quest to really look at my life. I was very aware I was on my own. You know, I was coming up to 40. I was a single mum again. I was in a job that I loved, but that my income had dropped by considerably. Our household income had dropped considerably. And I was very much aware, hold on, if you're going to be on your own, how are you going to do this? I didn't want to see my children have that change in lifestyle again, you know, along with everything else. Obviously, that's feels like the least of your issue, you know, when you come to relationships breaking down. But I wanted to make sure I could provide for them and that they would be safe. And I didn't really want to see us going back down. Felt like it had been a long path to have a bit of financial security to then have to go back. And the more I kind of looked at who I was and what I was doing, the more I started to explore different things. I did Thinking into Results with Dynamite Lifestyle and Kim Calvert, where I met yourself for the first time, or became aware of you certainly for the first time. I started to listen to different things, different audiobooks, different podcasts. I read very different books maybe to the ones that I would have read before. And I very much put my focus on myself for the first time. So when you're bringing up children, everything that I'd done, you know, I was a mother really the whole way through. So, and they were massive. I haven't really talked about it, but they were a huge focus for my life. And I was always really grateful that I could prioritize them no matter what work I did. If there was a school thing on, I was always able to get leave. I was always allowed to go out and do it. Then you would pick it up later or whatever. I had the privilege of being at every show, every concert, everything for all three of them. And I was working, but I also did have a lot of family time. And then with caring for my grandparents, you know, I helped to care for them, helped to support them as best I could, both before and after they went into nursing home, which was their choice. But they died, and I was so close, so close to them both. And when they died, they both died 2 weeks apart in February of 2017. And it was funny because it was almost like, you know, Granda went, and then Granny didn't really waken. You know, after that, she woke up a few times and had some food, or we would have, but she didn't really. And then she followed him 2 weeks later. And at the same time, my marriage was breaking down. So all of a sudden, whenever that, I had more time. My children were up at a different stage. And I really, for the first time, started to look at myself and think about where was I at? How did I want to be? What did I need to learn? Yeah. Put the focus all on myself. That was fun.
How were you at that time?
I suppose, how was I? At what time?
Just through that period.
Through that period, I was, I think there were just so many massive, big deal changes, you know, people that had been so important to your life leaving it. But also parts of it were like death. So with my grandparents, it was time. You know, they accepted that they were ready to go, and they had been talking about being ready to go. And there was an acceptance of that, very much so, and that they would go easily. And a lot of people, especially people who have cared for people with dementia, would say this, and I know we'd have talked about it. But somehow I was unprepared for the level of grief, you know, because you think as you're caring for them and you know it's for the best. And I, like so many others, thought I was prepared, but actually I really missed them. You know, I still had to grieve, and that took some time. I had, you know, teenage daughters and a young son who needed a lot of time and focus and energy, and we're going through, you know, teenagers my daughters were, at that time, they were doing GCSEs, they were all the things that come with being a teenager. It's not an easy time in anyone's life, I don't believe. Yeah. And then also, we were having issues as a family. We were having very difficult times as a family. And that sort of all came to a head within a year. Yeah, it was all resolved, worked through. And it was very tiring. It was a very tiring year. I come out of it just feeling tired, exhausted, I think is the word that I put in the chapter, like, and in my book. I felt exhausted, and I remember feeling very old. Does that make sense? Like I felt like old. I don't mean I looked old. I mean like I felt old. Like I felt even my body language, and I was just tired. But with all that said, it gave me the energy to kind of really put the focus back in myself and the children and say, what do I want them to see? Who do you want to be? I had great people around me who really came forward for me. I felt like I just kept getting pointed in the right direction, and I kept meeting the right people, and they'd say, have you looked at this? Have you thought about that? And I had a brilliant team around me. I had a fantastic therapist that I was working with at the time. I had a fantastic solicitor to help me through my divorce. And as I say, great friends.
It's interesting, in terms of, the sort of the hurdles and things you've gone through there. In terms of the caring side, and with your grandparents, it's interesting. You've talked about their choice. Their choice was, to stay at home as long as they can. And that, I mean, how did you respond to their choice? Is that something you were able to accept? Okay.
Yeah, it was, and I think it was freeing. For like, I don't want to make it for anybody who goes on a journey with people with dementia, and for us as well. At that time, we didn't really know. I hope things have changed now. I did a huge amount of work with lots of great people to try and raise understanding, raise awareness, and help people to understand a bit more about how to better communicate through the Dementia Friendly Communities programme. But like whenever they were diagnosed, I really didn't know anything about it. I did feel frightened. I was stigma, the stigma was there for me, and I did believe it. Looking back, I'm delighted at how much we all learned and grew. I'm delighted that we listened, that we supported them, my mum especially, but supported them to stay at home for as long as possible. It wasn't always easy. We put strategies in place, we listened to them. And when the time came, my granny was really getting to the stage where she needed nursing care. But my granda couldn't have gone in with her, because at that time, the care homes that they'd looked at, and that was a difficult experience looking at care homes. But anyway, one then that was really good, and we did have overall a really good experience. And they did, more importantly. But the care home couldn't have taken them both in together. They would have been in different areas, or they would have taken her but not him. And 18 months after she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, he was diagnosed with vascular dementia. And one of the first things that he said was, that's good, now we'll be able to go in together. And they went in, moved into the care home. And what a ride. Like, they changed things because they kept asking. And my mum kept asking and saying, but why? So here was this couple that'd been together, my goodness, 65 years at that stage, and been married for maybe 61 when they first went in. And they moved in, and they put them in a lot of care homes. They have like single beds, single rooms, So when they initially went in, they put them in 2 rooms in single beds. So every night, Granda up the hall, into bed. The 2 of them into this single bed in their 80s, clinging on for grim death. So Mum kept getting a phone call, you have to come in, they can't be doing this. Granda was being told you can't be doing this, and he was just like, why? I've slept beside her for 60 years. That's what's going to be happening here. And you know, like health and safety and that kind of an organization, it wasn't that the staff were being, but there was a risk, you know, there was a risk. And then eventually they did get them moved to a room upstairs, a double room upstairs, very quickly. And they did all the assessments. They put their beds together. They created so the living room one side, and they managed to have the bed. So they really did start then to listen and accommodate. And they were the first ever married couple that they'd had. So they were quite pioneering in that. And they, although they had to be in single beds because in case they needed lifted or hoisted, they were willing to put them together and move them and do all of that. So it was a real learning experience for everyone, all of us, including the staff. Yeah, and overall, I'm really proud of how it went and the experience that they had.
So there's a big smile across your face when you talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it does. Just the guts of them, you know. No, you know, they're from a generation where the nurses, the doctors were gods, and they were so human. They brought everything down to a human level. You know, hold on, we sleep in the same bed. We're married. That's what's happening. You know, we're going to be in the same room. This is what we want. You know, very, very basic, vital, important things that they were able to get resolved. With my mum did a huge amount, and she spoke so well. And the staff were willing. You know, the staff were willing.
You like getting what you want?
Yep. Not at any cost. But I do like to get my not my point across, but if I want something, it's usually for good reason. If I really want something, it's usually for good reason. And I will, go all out to get it, but not at any cost.
Why does it have to be for a good reason?
It doesn't. Yeah. Maybe that's just a turn of phrase. Yeah, it doesn't. It can be just because I want it. Yeah, but I don't want it to be at the cost of anybody else, or who's by good reason. I maybe mean like that it's going to benefit me and others. You know, I don't want it to cost someone else. And I'm quite good at getting what I want in the best way.
What are you most proud of?
My children. Yeah, 3 of them. Most proud of them. Yeah, they're great kids. All 3 of them.
Are they proud of you?
I hope so. Yeah, sometimes, mostly. But well, you know, like if you think, like whenever I had the girls, I was 21, 22, and I've grown up probably with them, you know, and I'm sure that I know, I'm not sure at all. I know they've had difficult experiences with me, and they've challenged me on things, and like see, going through the last few years, like the more I have talk about the lesson of listening, like the more what I really learned was listening to them. You know, they knew more, they understood more, they saw things more clearly, you know, and listening to them was so beneficial for them and for me. And then with Tom, I was 28, 29 when I had Tom, so I would say he's probably experienced some differences as a mum, but I've always aimed to be a really good mum. I've done my best. But they're lovely kids. They are, the 3 of them. They're really nice.
What have they taught you?
Everything. Everything. I think through being a mum, I've learned everything, really. Humility, pain, sadness, joy, love. They've taught me everything, really.
Do they enjoy writing and reading?
They do, although my daughters are very much, like if you said to them to write an essay, they would just go into puddles. You know, that would be for them quite a difficult, so they're very much science and maths. So my daughter Caitlin, they're twins, so they're twin girls, and my daughter Caitlin is doing maths and physics, and my other daughter is doing chemical engineering, so they're very much maths and science. And Tom has just started secondary school, so it's all to be revealed really with him.
Mm-hmm.
He's joined the rugby club, or the rugby team, was that fair to say? The rugby. And yeah, we'll see kind of how things go for him. He's all into his game and his friends. And he's just he's a really nice, friendly, good-natured, fun wee boy. Yeah. And he's always learning, he's always watching stuff, and he's like, did you know this? And did you know that? And the three of them will be very close. Their sibling relationships are very strong, which I'm really proud of.
How would you like to be described?
I don't know. I'm not really invested in what, I don't know. I don't know how people describe me. I don't really give it much thought. But I suppose you're being quiet, so I keep talking. I suppose I'd like to be described in an ideal world as a great mom, as a you know, a good friend, a good neighbor. You know, would I be described as that? I don't know, but what I'll choose in my head. But that's how I'd like to be described.
Mm. Yeah, that's fair enough. Can you take a compliment?
I'm learning to. I'm not that great at it. No, can you?
Same thing. I can now.
Yeah, you can now. Good. I'm sort of getting. Yeah.
It's interesting with if you changed a compliment into a present, in that, if someone handed you a gift, you wouldn't turn around and go, no thanks, or no, I don't want it. Of course you wouldn't. I mean, social etiquette and all that, just wouldn't happen. Yet when someone gives you a compliment, i.e. a gift, or an exchange of, it's a positive feedback, we just won't accept the gift. And you kind of go, in some ways it's quite rude.
And I do try to remember. I know people say, oh, just say thank you. And I really do now. I try to remember, and I try to not be self-deprecating. And you can feel, if somebody's being genuine and authentic with you and they're giving you a compliment, like, it's a wonderful thing. I know that it is, but I get all squirmy and awkward, and I'm trying to,
What are you capable of?
Capable of anything. I really do. Yeah, anything. Just where your focus is, isn't it? It's what you choose, where you choose to spend your time, what you choose to do, where you choose to put your energy.
And where is that for you?
For me now, that is very much on who I'm around, being mindful of that. Who I'm going to be in business with, what that business is, what it's about, what the values are, and about creative work really, and how I'm putting that into the world and what the impact of it is. And I want to be creating books and works that really resonate with people, and that they can see themselves in, and that inspires them, either to think differently, or to keep going, or to think in a different way, or to do things in a different way. Maybe different's the wrong word. In a way that's for the good of as many people as possible. Does that sound a bit glib? The good of all. I don't mean it in a glib way at all.
No, it's interesting as you. I mean, that's your thing. What does inspire you?
People. I love people. Like at the minute, so many things have changed in a good way, and it feels like it's been years building up. Years of everything's came in a step and then all at once. But like, for example, one of the things, whenever lockdown came, and then I was working really hard. We were doing a lot of work around campaigning around care homes and different things, and it was really busy. And then I was furloughed at the end of April, and I had a good friend had said to me, I'd been invited onto the Outstanding Network that Pat Slattery had recently set up, and he had said to me, get on. And, you know, you go on, you join this network. I didn't really know what's it going to be like, but I knew of Pat. I knew of Pat Slattery. I had respected him. I'd been watching what he'd been doing for years, and along with Donna Kennedy. And they were doing these like Wednesday webinars, which were fantastic. So with like so many people that I really did hold on a pedestal, and it was amazing to be able to like hear from them and these things that were going on. And all of this was being provided. Like it's all being provided. It was a lovely space. Then when I joined the network and started taking part in the calls, it was just like, oh, at last, you know, it was that feeling. I found my tribe. I found people that I really understand and who can understand me, and I can be myself around. All of them doing business, running really interesting companies. They're doing great things, but so welcoming. And I've learned a great deal, and that's what I want, to be around people that really inspire me in that way, or that they just make life feel easier, like more doable. Is that the right word? More like achievable, like that whatever your goal is, you know, it's as important as the next, which you know it is, but they show you they've done it, a lot of them, and it's lovely to be a part of.
Who are the outstanding people in your life, you know, that sort of call it heroes, call it inspiration, just people that really just mean something to you?
Oh God, loads of people. Wow, do you want me to list them? Wow, so many people. Well, my children, my mom, my close friends. I have some really close, amazing friends: Bridget, Tara, Julie, the two Julies, Mary Frances. I have a meditation group that we all go out with. I'm scared of missing somebody out. It's like being at the Oscars, sis. Like I have a really close group of girlfriends, and then meditation group. I've a lot of people that I met through different networks and clubs and groups, and they all really inspire me. I also have, I suppose, heroes, which would be, God, there's so many, but like, for example, like Pat Slattery is a hero of mine. He has been. I've been watching him for a long time and what he does. Bob Proctor, Mark Victor Hansen, Kyle Wilson. I love what they do and how they do it, and the messages that they have, and their aims and the goals that they have. Let me see, who else? Want some women in there?
Your grandparents?
Ariana Huffington. Well, my grandparents, definitely, yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Sassy Gran, have you seen her on TikTok? She's definitely a hero. Oh, she's hilarious. Yeah, Sassy Gran. I can't remember her name, but I just love watching her. She's a 94-year-old woman, and she has done so much in her life, and she's a great attitude and just a great turn of phrase. You know, she's like basically established childcare, the idea of childcare. You know, she brought up 5 children single-handedly. She's great ethos, great person.
Do you think people get you?
Some do, some don't. I'm comfortable with that. Now that I've got myself, it's a bit of a relief.
Would you say, are you in alignment of who you are, who you truly are, or you know, have you closed the gap, do you think?
Yes. I think I've closed the gap mostly. Still get times on the roller coaster. Does that make sense? Would you understand what I mean by that? But yeah, I'm definitely comfortable in my own skin, and I would feel I'm largely in alignment, and yeah. So that all sounds very, so that's like coming back to accepting a compliment, isn't it? It's like, you know, yeah, get me. But I mean that in a humble way, you know, that's through you know, some of the toughest times, you know, I've just got a great acceptance, and it took being around really great people and having brilliant friends and people around me that got me there.
Mm.
Yeah.
It sounds like you obviously had sort of various ups and downs and roller coasters through your life, you know. But
Yeah, of course.
what's your sort of what's your lesson? What have you learned from all that?
What I've learned is that you can't change anybody else. You know, you can only focus on yourself. That yes, you have to hold the highest vision for yourself and others, but you can't control, again, you can't control what anyone else does, or whether they want to be part of that vision. And just the power and freedom, the power and choice, that no matter what happens, or what you're going through, that there is a wee adventure just around the corner, you know, and you don't know where that's going to take you, who you're going to meet, what the next thing's going to be, or the next opportunity. And that it always gets better, yes, but by putting your focus on what you want, you can feel better about it, you can be excited, you can do the things that you've always wanted to do.
Do you feel in control of your life now?
Yes, I do. I do feel
Mm.
in control of my life, and I feel at this moment in time, at this kind of, I would say it's probably the first time in my life I don't feel like I'm very fearful. Now, I wasn't always fearful about all things, but I would have had kind of, oh, what if that doesn't work out, you know? Whereas I think it's probably the first time I've got to in my life where I'm like, yeah, well, mightn't, you know?
Mm.
It still matters. It's whatever it is, if it's a project I'm working on, or I'm still going to give it my all, and I'm still good. But if it doesn't work out, I know I'll be redirected somewhere.
Mm. You talked about, you know, having the highest vision of yourself.
Mm.
What do you see, and is there any part of that you'd like to share?
Oh, Pete. um, what do you mean? I think it's that self-image, isn't it? You know, thinking about who you are, who you think you are, who you want to be, and trying to get it to match.
Mm.
Not trying to get it to match, getting it to match, allowing it to match, but you know, stepping into it, and allowing it to be.
Mm. What about the bucket list? What's out there? What?
Oh yeah, I did it. I
Excellent.
did my bucket list. I found it really fun. So we were talking about this the other day about you and I were talking whenever I was getting to grill you about and that came out about the bucket list. So I sat down and I did it over the weekend, the 50 things, and it's not about death or, you know, and my 50 things. Do you want to hear some of them?
Please.
Yeah. So I was to
She
do.
says, bouncing with high energy and smile on her face. What are we going to do? Say no? You
Yeah, I
know?
know. No, I don't really. Um, so I was saying to you, I want to do, well, it was to do Camino de Santiago with some friends. Part of it this summer. So that would be one, certainly, to go and do that. I'm really looking forward to it, pilgrimage style. It was funny because whenever we started talking about it, I had visions of us doing it, you know, with a rucksack and all, very like pilgrims and low key. And I was quickly put out of my insanity. It'll be hotels and getting luggage lifted. I'm looking forward to doing that. So that's on it. I really want to go take the kids to Mexico. I have a really good friend who moved back there a couple of years ago. I want to go and stay with her and go to Tula. What else was on it? I want to. Oh God, there's so many things on it. What am I going to share? Okay, simple things as well. You know, like getting back to the Sunday hikes. You know, we always used to go hiking on a Sunday. In the last few weeks, that's kind of went off. And when I was sitting doing that, I was thinking, goodness, we haven't done that in a few weeks. You know, bring that back. travel. There's so much of it is just I want to go here and I want to go there. I want to go to Paris. I've never been to Paris that it hasn't been like Disneyland and kid focused. So I'd love to go to like grown up Paris. Yeah.
Love it. There's some great ideas, and even the energy you give off from that, it's just goes to show how powerful it is.
It is. It was a lovely thing to do. It was good fun. I was sitting giggling away to myself. No skydive on it. Not even near it. Not happening. But also things that I had done that I maybe like I've done a marathon hike. I've abseiled off things, like the Europa and different places. I've done all the water. I've done a lot of. It sort of made me think, oh goodness, and I've done that, and I've done that, and I've done that. Because it's good. It's really good fun.
Something not a lot of people know about you.
Probably nothing. I'm a fairly open book. I really don't know. Some people don't know. Don't know. Probably that I'm more spiritual than maybe I would appear. I'm down to. I don't believe in spirituality being something unobtainable or separate or within even religion. But probably that I'm a lot more spiritual and I do a lot more asking than people would think, possibly.
Just talk to us briefly about that. I mean, in terms of asking and what that means.
Well, asking for what you want, I suppose, what we talked about, asking for what you want, putting it out there. I don't really have a problem with that. I enjoy it. I think actually working for a charity was a great place because you had to be asking for things all the time. But actually asking for what I want, being able to say it, being able to ask it. One of the times I just after my marriage, kind of, we were in I suppose at the time we thought it was maybe a separation stage, but it really was the end. But it was just that time where it was difficult, I suppose, coming to terms with a lot of it. And I took a lump in my left breast and had to go for a mammogram and stuff to get it checked out. Now, hugely lucky, the GP had said, look, we're going to need to get that checked. My former husband at the time had me booked into a clinic the next evening. I didn't even have to wait 36 hours. It was dealt with. I'm so grateful. But I literally spent those 36 hours just praying, please, no, and whenever the word came through, I was really grateful. There was a treatment plan. The guy understood what it was, Stuart McIntosh, and he was lovely. He was so, do this, do that, here we go. And I've really prayed ever since. And I don't mean prayer as in down on my knees. I mean that conversation with source, universe, God, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I would talk to it on a regular basis. Yeah. And I like it.
Do you classify yourself as religious or spiritual? Where do you sort of, not that you have to categorize yourself, but
yeah, well, I think increasingly I've come to be all. I was brought up in a non-subscribing Unitarian church, so again, very liberal church. The people that were around us were very liberal, lovely ethos. I feel, very much Jesus focused and that kind of love is all and those kind of messages. Certainly I didn't feel growing up with our ministers or anybody, there was no kind of scary religion. I know some of my friends, there was no fire and brimstone, there's none of that type of thing. It was friendly and nice. And then as I was a teenager, I was kind of like, nah, don't want to go to church, don't want to know anything about that. And then I would have done a lot of like yoga and meditation, and I would have looked at Buddha and different religions. I was always interested. We had a minister at school for our RE teacher, and one of the things he did was take us through the world religions, which was fascinating, just opened your mind to the idea. But what he did was really draw a thread through them of the similarities. That's how he chose to put his focus. And I still remember it, of well, are they just versions of the same person? Now, he was an ordained minister. I think he was a Methodist. Do you remember him? He had glasses.
Reverend McClellan.
Reverend McClellan. What sort of a minister was he? Do you
Couldn't tell you.
remember? No, neither do I.
It's
Did you ever?
I've had a couple of good memories from Reverend McClellan. I actually swore in his class by accident. I was getting passionate about something. Very inappropriately, I swore, and for many that would have been a disciplinary procedure.
What did he do?
He just turned around and says, "I think do you want to re-choose your words there?" So, which I did, but I have huge respect for him.
Yeah, I had huge respect for him, and I remember those classes. They were so interested, and the way he allowed the conversation, and he allowed everybody to be open, and he did. I'm not saying he said. I remember it as him drawing a line, like as if, all of these people had a similar message. If you look at Muhammad, Buddha, Jesus, and the importance of that message, let's look at that message of love and how that filters through and how we show that and how we live that and how we care for others. Yeah. So I've always been interested. I do find it fascinating, and I do find it sad the way religion is used sometimes. But yeah, I would say I have a lovely minister. I'm part of a church, same church that I grew up in. But I also meditate. I, mixed bag, yeah. Do my own thing, I suppose. But I'm happy with it. I'm comfortable with it.
Do you prefer to listen or be listened to?
Do I find this fascinating, this idea of being listened to. Because I would say, I would have said about how important it is to listen, and don't get me wrong, I get challenged that all the time. You've got kids, you've heard 50 minutes, you're not listening to me, and sometimes they're right. You've totally zoned out. But actually, being listened to is just so peaceful. Whenever I really think about how am I listening to others, and you see it in your children, if you're really listening to them, they're relaxed, they're easier able to take on your message, they feel validated, I suppose. And I think it's very, very rare that I can look back and think, oh, I was really listened to there. And there's, I suppose I used to work within the senior leadership team at work, and, we were all fighting for a voice and a cut and and I've worked with brilliant people and directors who really did listen, who really did take that time. So I have seen it and I have experienced it. But yeah, I think it's probably more important to be listened to. Is that what you asked? Did I listen to that? What did you ask? Say it again.
Well, what do you prefer? Do you prefer to listen or be listened to?
Oh, I prefer probably to listen, as you may have seen. Yeah, I find it much easier to listen to other people. And I love listening to other people's stories than to talk about myself. That's changing. I'm getting more comfortable with it.
Do you get power from your own story?
I think for a long time, I felt I didn't understand the power that I had in my own story. And I think now that I haven't taken the time to look at it all and accept it all, forgive it all, learn from it all those things that you do, that some people do, not everyone, but some people do at whatever point in life they do it at. Now I very much get power from it, in the acceptance of it. And I'm proud of the vast majority of it. And even the bits that I'm like, oh, I've learned from them, and I've benefited from them in many ways.
What's your overall takeaway from all that?
All that life? My overall takeaway is that you get up, you keep going, you just keep doing better, striving to be better. You be the best person you can be. You surround yourself with the best people you have around you at that time. Keep learning, keep growing, and just have fun. I honestly, the last few years, it sounds, whenever you sort of say, oh, and this happened and that happened and all, but I've had some great fun. like even in looking at yourself, there were times where I just went like, seriously, you did what? Fixed, and you have to be able to do that and laugh at yourself and get on with it and allow people to be whoever they are and enjoy them.
Makes sense. Not that I'm bringing it on, but what would you like on your headstone when the time comes?
Oh my
A
God, could
long
you
time from
imagine?
now.
What would I like in my headstone? There's so many good headstones. See, I'm immediately going to other people's. I'm saying like other people's headstones instead of thinking about my own. Because I know Helen Medell, who would have been from just out the road from us. She has "The Light Is on Thy Head," which is a beautiful one. And I keep getting that TikTok song in my head, which is not. I don't know. I don't know what I want my headstone. I think it's all to be written now. I feel like I'm entering another really important period of my life, and we'll see what comes from it. Certainly, I would like it to be mother, grandmother, and great grandmother. I'd like that to be on there. Wife again, maybe. Well, not again. Hopefully, I'll not say again. But and I mean that in terms of like loads of them. But yeah, I'd like it to certainly say mother, grandmother, and great grandmother. I'd love to live long enough to see my great grandkids. Yeah.
Love it. So turns then of for you, I mean, where would you put yourself in terms of liking yourself, loving yourself, and valuing yourself?
I do like myself. Um, I do like myself. In terms of loving myself, yeah, I do love myself, and just find it's so weird to say out loud, isn't it? I do love myself. Yeah, I'm proud of who I am and how I try to show up in the world, um, and in terms of valuing myself, is definitely something I'm still working on. I would tend to underplay my skills. I tend to still underplay what I've got to bring to the table. But by the same token, that's good sometimes because it allows you to suss out what you can bring in any situation and show up as best you can. But yeah, I'd say I'm still working on valuing myself.
What do you hate most?
Bullying, I would say. I hate when somebody I hate that dynamic, and what it can do to people. I think it's very dangerous, and I think we all have a responsibility to step in and try to ease it wherever we see it. And I think, in my experience, we don't always see it. It's the scary thing. You don't always see it, and people aren't always believed. And I think as a society, I would love us to learn better how to deal with it, how to nip it in the bud, how to support everyone involved, how to change it, quickly, because it can be hugely damaging. So I hate that. I don't really hate anything, I hate the impact of that type of behavior. I hate the fact that it happens and that's a choice people make, and I hate that people can feel stuck in it, and I hate all of those parts of it. But I don't really hate much. Yeah.
What's a bit of a favorite book for you?
Oh God, I've so many. Where to even start? So many favorite books. I still love The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I love that, and about that journey and just weaving through. I love Heartburn by Nora Ephron, which is her thinly veiled memoir of her divorce. Like, it is still laugh out loud funny. I reread it recently, and it's so witty and so well written, just carries you along. I love Think and Grow Rich, which I read last year for the first time, and I still read it. Enjoy it. There's such depth in the messaging in it. I've recently been reading Florence Scovel Shinn and listening to the audiobooks of hers. Your word is your wand, things like that. That's been really, really, really interesting, and somehow opened up a new way of thinking. And you know that oh God, some of the kids' books, you know, like Where the Wild Things Are. If you read it, oh God, I love that. You know, what other ones? Dr. Zeus. Oh my goodness, you know, just the power of that. So simply put, everything, just such great messaging, just so simply put the whole way through. I've got so many favorite books. So many.
So what's a message you would like to get out there, and sort of a thought that you would like to leave everyone with?
I suppose for me, the biggest thing that I've learned over the last few years is that, you know, you have choice wherever you are, whatever you're going through, that you do have choice, and that you can look back, you can step away from things and consider what's the best next choice. We never know what the impact of that next choice is going to be necessarily. We don't know what other things are going to come down. But one of the most freeing things for me, and one of the most inspiring things for me, has been really starting to every single day, in any moment, make the best choice as I see it. And it gives me great confidence overall. I'm not saying I'm a hugely confident person or anything, but it does give me like a sense of peace.
Would you describe yourself as intuitive?
Yeah. But I don't always trust it, or I haven't in the past. You know, I'm working on it. You know, I nearly look back sometimes and I go, I don't know if you've ever done this, but sometimes I look back and go, but you knew this and you did that. You know, I had the moment of intuition. But I maybe took a different course of action, or I went a direction I wanted it to be, rather than the one maybe my gut was telling me was the way it might be better or easier. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Listening to yourself is probably one of the easiest and one of the hardest things to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can throw science in, you can throw 50 different things in, but yet, you know, it's when people go, God, I just had a sense, but they're either afraid to say it or afraid to trust or whatever, you know.
Yeah, and I don't think we're taught. I think like the more you're around people who, because no matter how you frame it, a lot of this, you know, whether it's framed in science through like books that are, the science of how you know things, or it's framed through religion and spirituality, or it's framed through history and how things repeat, or whatever way you can take on that message is fine. You know, great, whatever way you can take on that message. But whenever you actually listen to people, a lot of people that have achieved a lot in their life, and I don't mean it could be money, but you know, maybe they've ran a great campaign, or they've made a life-changing difference in their community, or whatever they've done. You know, most of them will say, I make my decisions really quickly. I go with my gut always, for right or wrong. You know, there's something in it, you know, being able to trust. But I also know from my own experience how easy it is to get away from trusting yourself, you can easily get far. The less you trust, I think, and the further you get from it, the harder it is to get back, or to believe your gut instinct. It's a hard thing to get across, isn't it? How did you know? I just knew. But you did. Sometimes.
I think for me anyway, it's the further you are from who you truly are. You know, it's a bit like the longer the stick, the less stable it is. You know, that gap between who you truly are and who you are currently projecting.
Well, that kind of a mask, if you're putting the mask on, do you mean? Or
yeah, just you know, the if you want control, you bring things close. You know, that's the longer sort of, the more variables there are, you know, and all that. So, you know, when you talk about that gap between your true self and who you currently are, you know, it's that the less stability, the further you are away, a bit like a fishing rod or whatever. I mean, it's the longer it is, the less control you have, and the less control you have, then the more confused you are.
Yeah.
So that,
No, that makes sense. Yeah.
so when you sort of going, well, how do I feel about that? I don't like that. It doesn't resonate with my values of, their authenticity, loyalty, choice, integrity, and respect. And if it doesn't hit those, and yet you're doing it, you kind of go, why does this not feel right?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It is. It is. And actually, that's another way people can frame it. It's not just my gut, it's, is this meeting my values if you know what they are? Again, that's another way of building confidence, isn't it, into your decision making?
Mm. What's, in one or two words then, what's your fire in the belly?
My fire in the belly is really, yeah, as I said at the start, it's really my children, thinking about what I want to be showing them, how I want to be inspiring them over the next number of years, how I'm going to support them, how I'm going to guide them if they'll allow me to, whilst also giving them the freedom to make their own mistakes and live their own lives of it. Well, I'm saying obviously it's not maybe obvious, but that's what I want, to do. But a big fire in the belly now and a great excitement is the creative projects that I have lining up, and the impact that they're going to have and how they're going to go out into the world. It's really exciting, like I'm waking up earlier, I'm going to bed later, I'm feeling like I have more energy. Yeah, all those good things. I'm working with great people, including yourself. I'm really feel really lucky. It's inspiring.
That wasn't two words.
No, it wasn't. You said two words, I heard 2 pages.
Give us your standout word, one or two.
Fire in the belly. Choice and love.
Close. I had choice. I didn't have the second one. I thought it was going to
Did
be
you have?
flow.
Oh, well, flow. Well, the flow state, it's pretty loving.
Mm.
Yeah, it's high vibration.
Yeah, love it. Heather, where can people reach out to you, hunt you down, track you down, stalk you, follow you, get more
They
about you?
can certainly get in touch with me. So you can get in touch with me by email, heatherclundy@gmail.com, or wecreateyourcontent.com/Heather.
Awesome. Any closing thoughts?
Oh, thanks so much for having me on. I've really enjoyed it. I was a wee bit nervous about talking about myself. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks very much.